everybody, to Fearless Friday. We are BrandFace, and we help real estate agents differentiate themselves. The reason we do Fearless Friday is to help real estate agents take the fear out of putting themselves out there. Today, we're going to be talking about how you manage your marketing mania. And what that means is, if you've ever heard the words or said the words, "This doesn't work," when it comes to your marketing, you are definitely in the right place today. There are lots of new agents entering or re-entering the industry. I'm sure that's no surprise to any of you, but what that means is there's a lot of agents out there. There's also a lot of marketing tools and platforms. It's already confusing enough to know which ones to use, but now that you have all these agents using all these different marketing tools and platforms, the biggest problem is that many of the agents are using them the same way. And so the end result is people tell us they really don't feel like they're standing out the way they should be, and thus everything is blending in. And so that's what we're going to talk to you today about, is how to manage your marketing mania. And so I'm going to share my screen with you now. The very first thing is you need to know your customers, and I'm going to let Michael take that part.
Number one thing, you got to run your business like a business. I want to start off by saying that. It's very important. A lot of times agents don't do that. They think, hey, I work for a big brokerage. I work for this brokerage. And in a sense you do, obviously. You got to listen to your broker. But you got to remember that it's your business. If you don't get up and get out and get it, it ain't coming into you, right? So you got the first place to start is to know your customer. Before any kind of marketing plan can be put together, that you have to think about, who am I attempting to attract? Okay, that's the very first thing that you've got to do. After all, how you deal with those customers will come out of that, and how to attract your ideal customer. Okay, now this does not mean that you won't work with everybody. It doesn't mean you're going to box yourself in and say, okay, I'm only going to work with you if you're, 5'11" and have blonde hair. It's not like that situation. You're going to work with people who have a need in real estate. But when you're spending money, your very valuable, hard-earned money on advertising, you want to attract the ideal customer, those customers that you love to work with. We tell our clients all the time, if you try to help everyone, you will help yourself right out of business. And that is so true. You don't want to be everything to all people. It's impossible, in fact, right? And what we attempt to do when we do that and try to be everything to all people is we end up being known to nobody. And you don't want that, right? So knowing your customer is the very first step and a very important part, okay? Again, you don't have to box yourself in with this, but it's more about like saying, hey, I really like working with first-time home buyers, so I'm going to work with anybody if they need to buy one, but I'm going to spend my money and attract the first-time home builders. Or buyers. That's what you're trying to do. You might want to work with waterfront properties. You might want to work with ranches. Those might be like the perfect scenario for you. So while you're building your bank of business, you are putting yourself out there as an authority in those niches, and that way those people begin to attract. You begin to attract those people. They begin to come to you, okay? We have a formula for this in BrandFace, and it's called HEAP, H-E-A-P. It's an acronym for exact formula for how to do this. So if you haven't seen that or you're new to us, then go to our YouTube channel and for the Fearless Friday playlist, and you'll see that we did a specific one for HEAP that will actually teach you how to know your customer and attract that customer.
And once you do that, once you define who that ideal customer is, then it's time to build your brand. Because until you know who you're trying to attract with your brand, how do you know what message and image to put out there to continue to attract those people? So, a lot of times people think that a brand is really just your colors, your logo, and your face on something, right? But that really is only the beginning of a brand. A brand is everything that encompasses what stands out about you, what makes you different from all the rest. And we like to tell people it's not always about the tools that you use, it's about how you use those tools. Your brand is the why behind you. It is the why they should choose you. So whenever you put yourself out there on a marketing channel or a platform, you need to understand why they should choose you over everybody else that's out there on that platform. So your tactic on each marketing platform can change a little bit. But your strategy, the strategy is the why choose you, that shouldn't change. The tactic is why choose me today, or why make this move today, interest rates, homes in this neighborhood are going fast. Those are tactical things, right? The strategy is why you use me. And so that's what's so important about that. And to parrot what Michael said, hit the YouTube channel for us. And if you want to learn about that, about exactly what it takes to build your brand, there's an awesome video there. In fact, a previous Fearless Friday episode that we did called Elements of a Strong Brand. So check that out.
Follow your clients or customers, okay? You want to show up where they are, So we get this question a lot. How do I choose which platform to show up on? Is it Facebook ads? Is it Zillow? Is it YouTube ads, local newspaper, radio, mobile ads, you name it? Well, there's hundreds of them, right? And so people ask us, hey, where should I show up? And the answer to that really needs to, again, start with your ideal customer and in the attraction of that ideal customer. Where are they? Like if you're working in probate, for example, we've got some agents that sort of specialize in probate. They need to be advertising in newspapers, right? And you think, well, who advertises in a newspaper? But newspapers where you're going to see obituaries, newspapers where you're going to see legal announcements and that sort of thing. So people that would be interested in that situation are going to be looking for help in that situation. So any of them will really work. We have agents that they have billboards, and billboards work really well for them because they're in an area and they know that people are passing by that billboard every day in the area that they want to really be known into. So that the billboards are very important when they happen like that. And newspapers are another one that I want to expand upon because a lot of people think, well, newspapers are dying. It's a dinosaur, like it's going, who reads a newspaper anymore? But you would be surprised, like the Columbus, Ohio area where Tanya's at, they have so many of these suburbs that are little pockets of suburbs. They all get newspapers that deal with very, very local sensitive information. Sometimes it's sports. A lot of times it's sports is always in there. But it might be other things that are just specific to their certain suburban area of Columbus, Ohio. So if you know that you're working in an area where you have neighborhoods that are like that, that's exactly where you want to advertise. In North Georgia, where I'm at, there's communities with 3,500, 4,000 homes in them. If you're one of the agents that want to specialize in that area, then you need to be on their periodicals that come out every week, the same as a newspaper. And so you need to think about, where is my client so I can follow my client or possible client, right? And that's where you want to go, and you want your advertising to show up there. My firm used to do Athlete of the Week in our local market, and until they discontinued, the newspaper discontinued it. But what made it really cool for me was I got calls all the time from people saying, oh, thank you so much, my son was Athlete of the Week. And we didn't even have to choose it. Like we worked with the newspaper to say, look, I don't want to be the one responsible, because then it's going to look like I'm showing favoritism or something like that. It's got to be something that you guys do just for an unknown reason, but I get the sponsorship of the space. And that was a really good way to locally reach people. Radio, fantastic blanket advertising, okay? If you're dealing with baby boomers, if you're dealing with an elderly that are transitioning up into assisted living or that sort of thing, or even nursing homes, and then, radio is still a very good spot to be, because those kind of people still tune into the radio on Sunday morning to listen to their favorite sermon or their favorite music or, talk radio. These are very important. So once you figure out where your customer is, you want to follow that customer with your advertising. Zillow is still good. Realtor's still good. Obviously, you can use those platforms. We have no problem with those things. But what you want to do is stand out. Remember, in Zillow, remember in Realtor, you're competing with 3 to 6 other real estate agents that are going to get the exact same lead the exact same time you do. So you've got to stand out in your advertising on those platforms if you want to really make sure that you stand out and let people know what sets you apart.
So the next thing you do is you take a look at know what your own communication strengths are. So let's start by kind of defining a language that we use. The difference between a tool and a platform. A tool is that could be your video, that could be your audio, that could be the way you write. That is the tool you use with which to communicate. You communicate through video. The platform is the marketing vehicle that you use to get that message out there. So for instance, a YouTube ad campaign, in a YouTube ad campaign, you would be using your video strengths, right? So video is the tool you're using, but the platform is going to be YouTube. So I hope that clears that up just a little bit. But the key to all of that is making sure to communicate in a way that's comfortable to you and where your strength is. So if you know you're somebody that absolutely hates video, although we would encourage you to get out of that thought process and start learning a little bit more about that and just be more laid back with it. But if you are somebody who absolutely hates video, don't want it, absolutely not, there are ways that you can utilize video still. Because you can do a video intro, for instance, one time and use that same intro over and over and over again. So you're really only on camera one time, but you're introducing yourself, you're using your brand identifier, you're stating in just a few seconds what sets you apart, and then all of a sudden the rest of the video goes into visuals, into other footage, and you're not seen on camera again, right? But still, they connect with your voice, they connect with your face in the very beginning, and they continue to hear your voice and your message throughout, but they don't have to see you on camera the entire time. Other people are just comfortable with only audio, and with podcasting being such a huge thing today, that's a great way to use your communication strengths if you're a great orator. And then some people are great writers, so they communicate really well through blog posts and articles and things like that. So know your strengths and kind of match that up to the marketing platforms that you want to use as well, because that's going to help you to be a strong communicator, is knowing where your own strengths are and using the platforms that highlight those strengths.
Definitely. And then this is a big one. Don't take on too much, folks. This is very important. I know it sounds, oh yeah, that's common sense. But if you're a doer, you know what I'm talking about. You tend to bite off more than you can chew. And then you're spending a lot of time chewing and not enough time like digesting, right? And so it's very important that you just take on a few, 3, maybe 4. All right. If you can do 1 extremely well, you're already ahead of the game. If you can do 2 extremely well, you're definitely headed there. If you can do 3 extremely well, then you are there. And then later on, what you can do is help to train other people inside of your team or that sort of thing, or inside your company, that they can handle some things while you take on something new. But it's very important. You know, we have the idea that we want to be everywhere because we're real estate agents and they need to know who we are and what we do and how we're doing. And we miss the fact that we should be farming neighborhoods, specific neighborhoods. Like, if you don't do this as a real estate agent, this is a pearl. You are missing out. You have to choose a couple of neighborhoods with 100 houses in it that you know and they know you. That is how real estate works, right? And that is how BrandFace works, and it is getting them out there. If you focus on no more than 3, possibly 4, if you've got a couple of them underneath your belt, you're going to see a huge difference in the way it works. Plus, you'll be able to figure out quicker where that fine line is of not spending the right amount of money on a marketing platform.
But the next thing you want to do is have a very clear plan on each one of these. You know, when you decide on the marketing platform that you want to use, you need to know exactly what you're going to accomplish on that. So, for instance, if we're sending postcards to a farming area, you're going to want to know exactly how to position yourself differently from everybody else. And if you're running, let's say, a Facebook ad campaign at the same time, you want to make sure that whatever message you're using in that postcard, you can tailor to your Facebook ad campaign, targeting the people in that zip code or community. So you're hitting the same people 2 different ways with the same message. And that's really important. You can't do too much of that. frequency is key as well. You want to make sure people hear the message enough times. And again, let's just say you sponsor a banner or sponsor your local high school team, and this big banner hangs up at the high school football stadiums or the high school gyms. You're going to want to make sure that your brand is infused into that banner somehow. It should never just be your logo. Your logo doesn't always say what sets you apart. Your logo should include that brand identifier, which is actually what sets you apart, and perhaps a little tagline in addition to that, or a call to action. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, or download this, or whatever that call to action is. There always should be a call to action on something, even a simple high school stadium banner. Okay, so just keep those things in mind, because if you have a clear plan and you know exactly how you're going to use each of the platforms, you need to be able to measure them. And that's where we're going to get into what Michael's going to talk about next with a call to action.
You got to have a call to action, folks. This is so important. Okay. You could put advertising out there all day long with your face and what that sets you apart. But if you're not asking that person reading that to do something in return, you've missed you've missed the bulk of it, right? It's just at that point, just what we call a broadcast type of advertising. It's got to be specific. So like if you're a relocation specialist, then you want your call to action at the end of all of your advertising to say, hey, go to my website and check out my video about relocating, and then call me to discuss your move. Something to that extent. Like you need to tell them what you're expecting out of them and what they need to do to be able to move forward in what they want, which is what you can help provide. And that's very important. If you're a relocation specialist, you could say, hey, watch my video for why people are moving to a certain area. Then call me and let's discuss your move. It could be the ideas are limitless of how you would want to put that advertising out. But at the end of it, the call to action is what gets them to move, and what should stand out poignantly inside their mind when you're trying to get them to contact you back, right? And so like if you're somebody in these videos who specializes in an area, like at neighborhoods that I was just telling you about in the slide before last, at the end of those short videos, your call to action would be book a time on your calendar to discuss your move. That could be a move where you're giving them something, and then you're asking them to take a step forward towards you. And then what you're doing is closing those gaps every time till you build that relationship. And then that relationship leads you to the deal, and then the commission, and them to what they're looking to get done, right? And so you want to tell them how you could help them choose exactly the right area, why you're the expert in that, and why is always so very important, okay? You want the why to address what their need is. Why they want to contact you is because you know what their need is, and you know how to fix their need and help them with their need. And that's the way to do it. So your videos, while you're advertising, really, but if you call them a campaign, then it's a twofold thing. You want to get the video views so they get to know who you are, and so they know your personality. But the second fold is they also know your expertise, right? And then that should lead you to bookings if you put in the call to action that they reach back out to you. Puts the ball in their court. Natural reaction is for them to hit it back.
Absolutely. Okay, and then the last point for today that we have to talk about is don't expect overnight success. I learned this a long time ago when I first started working in radio, for example. People would come up to me on occasion and say, okay, this radio thing doesn't work. It doesn't work. And of course, I heard that about every marketing platform you can imagine for many years, right? but I'm just speaking of this particular instance. Radio doesn't work. And I used to say to them, yes, it does. Marconi proved that it worked many years ago. So, we know it works. In fact, you probably heard it on your way to work this morning. And they giggle a little bit. And then we got into the real message behind everything, which is this. In order for your campaigns to work on any marketing platform, here's what's got to happen. You've got to have the right message going out to the right people in the right place at the right time enough times. Okay, so that is the magic formula there. And I can't stress each point enough. The right message we've talked about today. How do you even know what the right message is unless you know who you're trying to reach, which is the second one, the right people. Those are your ideal customers. You don't want to send out a message that you think appeals to everybody, because that doesn't make you special. Then you want to make sure it's in the right place, meaning is your ideal customer on the other end of that marketing platform? If they are, you know you're in the right place, right? And then it's the right time. For instance, if you're trying to sell bicycles, probably the worst time to try to sell bicycles is in January, at least up here in the Northwest, right? Because you can't ride your bike outside in January unless you have snow tires on it. So you got to keep those kind of things in mind, in the right time. The right timing definitely has to play in. And then enough times. And I'm going to emphasize this by saying it needs to be enough times with the same message. So if you are somebody who is a super creative mind, you know, and Michael and I have these creative minds, so we have a tendency to go off track sometimes too and think, oh, this is a great idea, and this idea is great, and this idea is great, and all of a sudden it's like you're trying to do too many different things at once. But the only thing that resonates and sticks in somebody's head is the same message over and over and over, which is your brand. It is the why behind you and what sets you apart. That's the one thing that should never, ever change, that differentiation for you. And if that's all they remember, that's okay, because guess who's going to remember that? The right people, right? So you can change up things from time to time, but make sure that core message is always, always the same. And I will let Michael close us out with this.
Yeah, folks, so we're here for you. You can come to discussyourbrand.com, and we would love to talk to you about where you're at. If you don't have a brand, if you don't not know exactly sure what a brand is, if you think you have a brand, if you do have a brand but you don't feel like it's reaching people right, we can help you at any phase of that. And we love to discuss it with you. We talk to people all over the country, and in 4 different all over this country and in 4 other countries, about how to handle their brand and how to get that out there, and the messaging that works and works consistently over a long period of time. And we'd love to hear from you.
And we will see you next time on Fearless Friday.